Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H event space. You're tuned in to On Location in Thailand, Muay Thai photography with Reza Malayeri and the Sony A9III. There it is. I got nothing for you, man. Guards down. You caught me off guard. I'm knocked out. You're ready. I see you learned. You taught some photography, maybe learned a little bit combat?
Yeah, I served in the U.S. Army for 4 years, so I have a few basic
Yes.
training moves still in my back pocket.
Remind me not to disagree with Reza ever. Reza, welcome back, man. A huge thank you to you for joining us. Of course, Sony for hosting today's event, and looking forward to this one. It's a little bit different than what we've had you do in the past, and we're taking it overseas once again, but a new genre. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you do what you do best. We'll watch, we'll ask questions. You guys do what you do best. Tune in, ask your questions in the comment section over there on YouTube, and I will see you in a bit, Reza.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, everybody. I am super excited to be back with another exciting presentation on the B&H event space, all about Alpha 9 Mark III and our continued series in my recent trip over to Bangkok, Thailand. So, again, a big welcome to everyone. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Reza Malayeri. Thank you all for joining us again on today's presentation, all about high-speed burst photography on location in Thailand with the incredible global shutter of the Alpha 9 Mark III, which we have right here. As always, I would like to give a big thank you to everyone at B&H and Sony Alpha for this opportunity to share my knowledge with the community at B&H and our Alpha fam. And I am super excited for today's presentation. So without further ado, let's get rolling. All right, guys. So as you can see, I traveled all the way to Thailand, where I drove to a city called Pattaya. It's about 2 hours outside of Bangkok, and went to the Max Muay Thai Stadium. So I am excited to tell you all about the experience, how it went with the A9, show you some really cool examples. We have burst photo examples. We have some video clips. And we're going to go over all of the settings and features of A9III and why they're so incredible for fast action photography. So before we get started, let's go over some of the topics that we're going to cover just so you can have a high-level overview of what we're going to talk about today. So as always, I like to give a little introduction and context about me and what I do so you kind of know who this guy is and why he's giving this presentation. And then we're going to delve right into the overview of A9III and some of its highlighted speed and performance features. A9III is built for speed all the way throughout, so we're going to cover an overview there, and then we're going to jump into some of the advantages of why the new global shutter in A9III is so advantageous for things like sports, wildlife, fast-moving subjects. And then we're going to go through a series of hands-on demos. I have an overhead set up for you guys and also the ability to show you the menu on A9III so I can give you some demos on setting up some of these really cool, powerful features that you can use to make sure that you never miss peak action again. So with A9III, if you are trying to capture fast-moving subjects, there's a lot of features that help you make sure you don't miss any moments. So we'll go through the pre-capture setup, then we'll look at some of the autofocus improvements, talk about why it's so amazing, and then I'll show you some of the awesome modes that are all new with A9III for tracking and focusing. And then we'll cover the turbo button, I like to call it, but it's called Speed Boost. It's a really cool feature to where you can quickly jump from any one of your chosen frame rates up to the max, which is a mind-blowing 120 frames per second. And then we'll again look at some of the gear I use to create the images at Max Muay Thai, and then give you another overview of what we got coming up next and some Q&A. So hopefully Derek will disagree with me a few times throughout this so we can have some fun. Just kidding, Derek. But yeah, here's a little bit of an overview about me. I've been shooting with Alpha cameras since the A6000. Hopefully you guys remember what an incredible camera that was. And I rely on all of my Alpha cameras for my professional work. I currently shoot with Alpha 9 Mark III, Alpha 1, We have Alpha 7S Mark III up here. We have ZVE1 right here. And then I like to have the A7CR for my day carry because it's compact, really high resolution. So I'm a big Alpha shooter. I love Sony Alpha and I rely on it for all of my pro work. Now, if you want to follow my work, you can catch me on social channels at Malayeri and check out some of my publications on Sony Alpha Universe, Deep Review, F-Stoppers, of course, the B&H Event Space Online. And yeah, you can stop by on my website at rmalayeri.com if you want to drop me a line, ask any additional questions. It's all under the same handle. And yeah, so I've been doing photo and video for over a decade. I've done weddings, portraits, sports, and I fly drones. And I specialize in commercial work and teaching photo video. So that's a brief overview. Enough about me. Let's keep this going. And here is a sneak peek for you guys to see the venue. So when I got to Pattaya, this was the entrance. And once I got inside, the view of the stadium, you can see I got lucky. I got VIP tickets that gave me a really cool vantage point on the ring. And you can see I was also like the first guy to get in. So I was super stoked when I walked in. I had an amazing view. I had, first dibs to get in and it was super awesome. So this is kind of the scene of what we're going to be working with. As you can tell, there's going to be a ton of artificial light, which is one of the reasons why A9III is amazing for sports. It's really common in a lot of stadiums to have tons of artificial LED lighting, billboards, and all of those crazy frequencies and scan rates usually cause a lot of imaging artifacts. And so I had none of that thanks to the global shutter on A9III, which we covered in our previous presentation. If you want to know more about what makes global shutter different from rolling shutter and why it's so advantageous to quell some of these artifacts, definitely check out our previous presentation where we talked about off-camera flash. We delve into the differences and the advantages in that regard in that presentation. And so let's look at a high-level overview of some of the advantageous speed and fast-moving subject capture features of Alpha 9 Mark III. Now, Alpha 9 III represents the bleeding edge of Sony Alpha innovation in hardware, imaging, and software. It has a lot of world firsts, both in regards of its hardware with global shutter and a lot of features that are new to Alpha that we haven't seen before. There's a plethora of new innovations and enhancements, including the all-new physical body design, which is really, really comfortable to hold in the hand. See if I can give you a top-down view of, let's see here. Yeah, so this is the new body design. The grip has been improved. It's really beefy. All the buttons are big and clicky. We still got the beautiful EVF, and we've got the same screen that came from A7R Mark V. And just overall, it has been improved. Speaking of world first, it also has this new, I don't know if my overhead can pick it up, but there's a star button right here on the dial, which is new to all Alpha cameras, that allows you to bypass the physical dials if you're used to and comfortable with using the traditional dials for your different settings changes. So lots of new design features in hardware and software, including on the body. So again, let's look at some of these highlights. So the sensor we know is a 24.6 megapixel stacked CMOS. It's the world's first full frame mirrorless camera with global shutter. And we've already discussed that it's amazing for both photo and video. But the key is that you get rid of a lot of the rolling shutter distortion, especially when you're tracking fast moving subjects. Things that move quickly across the frame usually move faster than what a rolling shutter can keep up with, and that results in all of those imaging artifacts. And so A9III global shutter, fast action, you get perfectly straight lines. Hopefully you've seen the demo where A9III is shooting a helicopter blade and the blade remains perfectly straight. So that just gives you an idea for how fast global shutter can keep up without introducing any distortion. So it's really amazing for fast moving subjects. And now you couple that with the new Bionz XR imaging processing engine, which is also lightning fast. It is able to keep up with the speed of that amazing global shutter and process all of that data on the same level. So everything is just ultra fast throughout the pipeline. Then we keep adding more cherries on top with these additional features that just keep building upon this pedigree of amazing speed. So pre-capture, again, a first in alpha, allows you to capture the moments prior to you pressing the shutter button. And this can go anywhere from like 0.005 of a second all the way to 1 second. We're going to cover how to set that up and speak a little bit about how I leveraged it. Excuse me. But we also have pre-capture, so a huge benefit for tracking fast subjects. The AF system is phenomenal. We have full sensor coverage, pretty much 759 phase detection AF points that go all the way across your sensor. So as you're tracking, you have virtually no zones on your sensor where there isn't any autofocusing points. So the AF picks up the subject, locks on, and just tracks, and it's impossible to lose your subject. It's extremely sticky. Technically, it's 95.6% coverage, and let's build upon that again with the dedicated AI processing unit that is doing a lot of that heavy lifting for processing that data, freeing up the image processing engine. So the AI processing unit has the real-time recognition for human form and pose estimation, and that is so crazy good. As you'll see in the examples, it can tell where a human body is going to transition to, where the head is in relation to the rest of the body, stay locked on the face as things obscure and move, like punches and body movements, erratic movements. It's incredibly good. So a lot of that has to do with the human form and pose estimation that's in the AI processing unit, which coincidentally you can enjoy on the ZV-E1, which I'm filming with, A7CR. All of Sony's newer Alpha cameras are all including this amazing AI processing unit. So I find, especially when I compare it to my other Alpha cameras, that it makes a significant improvement in autofocus. So that's in Alpha 9 Mark III, and beyond humans, it can also detect birds, insects, cars, trains, and airplanes. So your autofocus is just going to be off the charts with Alpha 9 Mark III. The EVF, it has been phenomenal throughout its introduction in the Alpha 7S Mark III, if I'm not mistaken. It's the first time we saw this EVF, and it's gotten better and better with each new Alpha camera, because now it can refresh at up to 240 frames per second. So very, very smooth when you're looking through it, especially since it's a blackout-free EVF. It's hard to go back to seeing blackout in EVF once you've seen this on Alpha 9 Mark III. It's built so that you don't miss a moment, because there's literally no blacking out in between your frames as you're bursting. It's kind of like just recording film, which again, you'll see that's exactly what you can output with the incredible burst rates of Alpha 9 III. So we've got our quad XGA EVF, amazing for high-speed shooting. Then for USB Type-C, we have super speed, so you can plug it and transfer data really quickly to your computer. And also the new AC MIMO Wi-Fi for data transfer. So if you're a sports shooter and you're out at the stadium and you need to FTP your images in real time for news coverage, it has ultra-fast MIMO Wi-Fi. It also has an Ethernet port, so if you're wired in a video village or somewhere, you can transmit your images really quick. So the speed goes beyond just the imaging and the autofocus. It's built in the rest of the body, in the Wi-Fi and Ethernet and everything else. So these are just some of the reasons why A9 III is amazing for tracking and capturing fast action. Now, let's move on to the advantages of global shutter and why global shutter specifically is so great for fast moving action. So In the subtitle for this, I put speed and silence. And so whenever you're tracking fast action, whether it be sports or wildlife, you want to be able to keep up with the action, but you also don't want to be intrusive or, disturb things. If it's wildlife, for sure, you don't want to scare off the birds or the animals. And if you're, let's say, at a golf match or somewhere where being discreet and quiet is super important, the global shutter is completely silent. So the two big highlights are speed and silence. But this is why it's so advantageous. It enables many benefits where it can capture and process images and autofocus data with amazing speed and precision, and it eliminates many of those imaging artifacts. So because the global shutter captures every pixel all at once really quickly, all of those distortions are out of the window, which is ideal for tracking your fast moving subjects. Your lines won't be warped, you won't have any distortion, and that is a huge advantage of global shutter. Now, we also just discussed the fact that it's completely electronic, so there is no mechanical shutter, which is one of the main reasons why you can shoot in complete silence. It's an electronic technology, global shutter, so you won't hear that sound, and that removes also the speed limitation of a mechanical shutter's movement. So it also reinforces the build being focused on speed. So you take away things that will limit your ability to keep up with the action, like a mechanical shutter. It increases your speed, but it also gives you the ability to shoot in complete silence, which is amazing. And the volumes of data that it's moving is absolutely incredible. I tried to find the stat for how much data will move through the pipeline as you shoot at 120 FPS, but I couldn't quite pull it out of my archive, but it's a lot of data. So basically, the whole pipeline is just processing tremendous amounts of imaging, focusing, and all of that data through its pipeline. So global shutter is what enables this to, be able to go all the way through without hitting a bottleneck. So with the ability to shoot in complete silence, it's ideal for capturing sports like we talked about and wildlife, because you can be completely incognito, especially when you're shooting at a high frame rate, which would typically be noticeable with a mechanical shutter. In my case, in the stadium in Pattaya, I wanted to be as stealthy as possible. And for the most part, unless people were looking at me directly, they really couldn't tell that I was bursting off thousands of images. I shot a lot of images, and I'm going to share how many I actually shot. So being incognito is huge, and that's a huge advantage of global shutter. Now, as you can see in this video, artificial lights everywhere, and that's another huge benefit of global shutter. It completely eliminates the flickering and banding that these artificial lights cause, and that's because of their scan rates. And again, it's super common in sports stadiums, especially when you're shooting with the rolling shutter camera. The camera, even if it's a stacked super high-speed camera, if it's not global shutter, will still eventually run into an issue where it can't sync properly with those lights, and you end up seeing the flickering video and just the ugly banding. So these are some of the reasons why global shutter is so good for shooting fast action in sports and wildlife. And so let's get to our first burst example. I'm super excited for you guys to see this because it really is incredible how good it is. So this example shows the blazing fast performance of A9III, which really highlights the mind-blowing accuracy of A9III's global shutter and autofocus technology working together. So in this particular burst, I captured 84 images and all in one sequence. So as you'll see, A9III tracked the action with full autofocus and auto exposure throughout the entire 84 image set, with every single frame of the sequence being tack sharp on the boxer's eye. And as you'll notice, you can see the boxer that has his back turned to me, the camera, once it locks onto the boxer behind him who's throwing the punch, it stays on him throughout the whole set of 84 images without ever dropping him, even though all types of stuff is obscuring his face. You can see the blue boxing gloves going in front. You can see the boxer's head going in front. And that is the power of the AI subject detection for human form and pose estimation. Once it grabs that silhouette of the boxer and it's locked on his face, 84 images in succession are tack sharp in an extremely fast burst. And this is absolutely phenomenal. Like for me, to get 100% hit rate across 84 images of fast moving action with all kinds of stuff obscuring my subject at long range, I'm shooting this with the 70-200, like back in the bleachers. So really, really incredible. It's also why I hark so much on shooting native Sony glass with Alpha. If you want peak performance, you're not going to get this level of performance without shooting G Master glass. It's blazing fast. It's extremely accurate and incredible. So that's our first example. And now we're going to talk about how you can leverage that to make sure that you never miss peak action again. So peak action basically being that you can shoot a burst and get that critical moment out of it. And that has to do with being able to leverage pre-capture with all of these other amazing technologies that A9III has to offer. So A9III pre-capture is a powerful feature for never missing peak action again. It's extremely difficult to perfectly time the peak of any kind of fast moving action, right? If a hummingbird's about to jump off a branch, it's literally impossible for you to be able to perfectly time the moment when the bird either takes off or lands. And pre-capture literally makes it a no-brainer for you to routinely be able to capture those types of moments, whether so in sports or wildlife or any kind of fast-moving subject. A9III pre-capture allows you to capture moments that were previously unattainable. And this is because it's continually buffering images for as long as up to 1 second prior to when you press the shutter button. And so it's really great for sports and wildlife photographers that always need to capture that peak moment and get those, A-grade frames. Like Renan Ozturk likes to say, always look for getting those, number 1 A frames, at least 1 a day. With A9III, you'll be able to hit 5 or 6 of them a day. It's absolutely incredible. So it's buffering the whole time as you're half pressing your shutter and doing that for whatever length of time that you designate, which we covered earlier with 0.005 of a second all the way up to 1 second. And it's available in any format. So you can shoot JPEG, HEIF, RAW. It can handle all of the file formats all the way up to 120 frames per second while it's giving you, like you saw, full autofocus and auto exposure tracking. And to engage it, you just have to make sure that you have set what length of time you want it to buffer for. And for me, I like to add it to my FN menu so it's quickly accessible to turn it on and off. And then all you do is half press your shutter and wait for peak action. And the second you see something that you think is a important moment, when you press it, it captures all of those images up to whatever length of time before you hit that trigger. So really incredible. Let's take a look into A9III's menu, and we will go ahead and see how to set that up. Okay, so I like to add it into my FN menu. So let's see. If I'm in FN, you can see I have it here. So that's just really quick access. So I can jump in, I can turn it on, and then whenever I'm buffering, I'm just half pressing the shutter, and you can see it's buffering all those images based on however length of time. So that's about, that's a half a second worth of buffered images. And if I saw something and I clicked it now, it would capture all of those in addition to however long I continue to hold down my shutter button until the buffer is full. So that's one place where I put it, is in my FN menu. But I also like to put it in the My menu section of my A9III. because I can go in there and let me move my picture in picture so you guys can see. I can go in there and I can designate in the menu how long it is. So in the FN menu, I'm just turning it on and off. But in my main menu, I'm actually saying, give me about half a second before I press. Or if it was something that moved extremely quick, I could say, give me a full second before I press. And that's usually plenty good to even freeze like hummingbirds and stuff, which I've already done. I was going to add some samples in here, but that would have been weird to have hummingbirds with boxers. So, but you have the ability to designate how long you want it to do that. And then you can also say whether you want it to only be doing it while you're half pressing your shutter, or if you're using back button focus, you can limit it to back button, or you can do both shutter and back button AF assigned focus. So that is essentially how we handle pre-capture. So pretty amazing to have access to that feature. And let's keep moving on to another example. So here is me shooting, and you can see the behind the scenes of this particular burst. And this is an 82 image burst again, where you could see how well A9III is locking onto the eye from that distance of the boxer in the background, and how it smoothly transitions over to the boxer that moves into the front. So when the face becomes fully obscured, then it smoothly transitions to the next subject, because the AI human form estimation knows to go to the next human subject, right? Whereas if we didn't have that technology, it might try to jump to the ropes or, some object in the background. But that's how awesome the tech is in A9III, is that this whole sequence is usable because of that. So we get awesome action as it starts on the boxer in the back, and then it smoothly transitions over to the other boxer that moves in front, thanks to the AI processing unit and the real-time tracking. Pretty crazy. Again, 82 images, and all of them are tack sharp between the two subjects. None of them flew off into the background or anything. And this is in pretty decent, low light. And so the autofocus, like I was saying earlier, is really, really incredible. So we have real-time recognition AF, we have tracking, and then we have custom focus mode. So it's pretty much full sensor coverage for AF on A9III. And when you combine it with all of these class-leading speed-related features of like Bion's XR image processing engine, global shutter, it becomes the ultimate camera for accurate tracking and autofocus performance of high-speed action. It can achieve the critical focus like we saw in extreme low light conditions, and we're talking up to -5 EV, and it can go all the way as high as +20 EV. So nailing critical focus is crucial in the dark, and especially in a Muay Thai stadium like this. And even from long range, you guys saw how amazingly it picks up. That thanks to the dedicated AI processing unit, which is handling a lot of the autofocus and tracking processing at a very high speed. And so the hit rate on both of these examples that you've seen so far has been 100% across 80 plus, 75 plus images, which is insane. Really, really great for pro sports, for wildlife, and just in general. If you're a wedding photographer, and you don't want to miss that critical first look or the kiss at the ceremony, this is a must-have for capturing those critical moments. So we have our 759 phase detection points across pretty much the whole sensor, and the -5 EV, the dedicated AI unit, and then you can fine-tune your AF tracking responsiveness as well. So I'm going to show you that, and that you can determine that based on how fast your subject is moving, whether they're kind of standing still, really erratically changing, and you can change these modes now from stable to standard or responsive. So that's also new to Alpha. Typically, I believe it's like standard or responsive, and stable has been added, and they've all been tuned to really react based on the speed of the subject movement. So we also have some other really new cool things in autofocus to Alpha with Alpha 9 Mark III that are being introduced, which are new focus area spot sizes. These are super cool. You can go from extra large and extra small to large, medium, and small. So you have new focus area spot sizes, so you can really make sure that you're just focusing on a particular spot and avoiding, foreground objects on the side. These are really cool. And there's also the ability to customize the focus area to new shapes. So if any of you guys have used zone focus before with Alpha AF, typically, you can move the block up or move it down, move it left or right. Now you can change the shape. You can have a vertical shape. You can make that vertical box small or big, or horizontal and small and big and rectangular. I'm going to show you that. It's super cool, but these are, again, just added refinements to allow you to really just focus on a particular area of the ring or the soccer field or the gymnasium. Wherever you are, you can fine tune your focus box to only land on a particular point, which is super cool. So let's jump back into the menu here, and we're going to look at the autofocus modes. So if I go in here and I jump into my focus areas, you can see this one here where it's called custom. So if I go into the set button, which is basically the trash can, you can see that it shows the front dial. If I rotate the front dial, it's expanding it up and down. If I rotate the back dial, it's expanding it left and right. And in general, if I rotate the main back dial, it's making it bigger and smaller. So you can pretty much choose the shape and size and place this thing wherever the action is happening. And because it's full sensor coverage, you're not going to miss focus no matter where you put this box if the action is happening in that area. So this is a preview of the custom focus areas that are new to Alpha 9III, and hopefully we'll see it come to more Alpha cameras. But this is like super important and awesome to have for tracking fast action in sports and wildlife and weddings. And then the new spots that we talked about. So, before we had large, we had extra large, the center, but now you can see we have these new ones, which are small and extra small. So if I'm just doing tracking here, I can really focus on just getting that small piece of whatever it is that I'm trying to focus on, which is super cool. So that is the new custom focus and the new tracking spots. Super awesome. So just a small preview of the new autofocus features that you can take advantage of with Alpha 9III. So I want to show you another image sample here that showcases the A9III's dedicated AI processing unit with the autofocus capabilities. So you can see here that I was able to achieve the critical focus on the boxer's eyes, even though his face is turned to the side and the venue is relatively dark. So we're in low light condition. My subject isn't facing the camera directly. He's got this, I forget what it's called, but it's like a traditional headband on. And, I was shooting from across the stadium with the 780-200, and A9III had no issues achieving critical focus from long distance with all of these challenges in the way. And again, it's thanks to native Sony G Master Glass, which I always recommend for best performance. You can see we got another sample, same similar type of situation here, where our other contestant is again to the side, and we still have critical focus on his eye at long range in low light. So really amazing. Shows the power of the dedicated AI processing unit, and A9III is full sensor coverage AF. Really great low light focus. Amazing. Now we got ourselves another sample here, and We can see that there's more examples of the faces being obscured by the gloves, the erratic movements of the subjects, and the low light condition. I'm pretty sure I was a pretty high ISO here, like 10,000 or higher. But we have 100% hit rate again across 75 images that we're about to see. And I shot these bursts with pre-capture turned on. So, once I got the images into post, I could pick the sequence and the part of the action where it's peak of him going and trying to, execute his move here. And that is amazing because you have up to 1 second of pre-capture to take advantage of when you're trying to capture, this type of fast-moving subjects. And you're getting, a really high hit rate, critical focus. The eye, even as he goes through the motion, it stays on him all the way through. It's really, really insane how good the autofocus is on Alpha 9 Mark III. Absolutely amazing that you can capture these types of moments that you would miss otherwise. It would literally be gone in under a second, and without global shutter and the amazing processing speed of Alpha 9 III, you would miss these types of moments. But now you can routinely achieve them, which is really incredible. So with that, we're going to take a look at the speed boost, or I like to call turbo button, where you can toggle 120 frames per second on and off so that you can only use it when you need it, so you don't fill up your memory cards extremely fast. And that is thanks to A9III introducing a new custom button called C5. So you guys can see it right here. So, and it's placed really nicely almost underneath the shutter button. So when you're shooting in your bursts, you can assign different frame rates to these buttons here on Alpha 9 III. You have your low burst, your medium burst, your high, and your high plus. And you can assign different frames per second to each of those. And so say you had low assigned to 10 frames per second, but then you saw the boxer going for, he's going to go for a really fast shot, then you could quickly toggle C5. Let's see, there we go. You could quickly toggle it, burst up to 120 FPS, toggle it off, and you're back down to 10 frames per second again. So that turbo button, I like to call it, is pretty incredible. And I'm going to give you guys a demo of how to manage it. So again, I like to put my favorite settings into my menu here, and then I can quickly adjust them. And so here under the continuous shooting speed settings, you can see where I have, let me move myself out of the way. There we go. You can see where I have the different frame rates assigned to the different buttons on the dial. So if I'm on low, I'm only going to be shooting 10 frames per second. If I'm on mid, I'm getting 20, which for us old timers, that was like mind blowing when the original Alpha 9 came out at 20 FPS. Then here at high, we have yet another revolution with Alpha 1, where we got 30 frames per second at 50 megapixels, which is incredible. And now we can go all the way up to an incredible 120 frames per second with high plus on Alpha 9 Mark III. So, I think a reasonable rate is maybe 20. So you could be shooting at mid, and then you see something that's like really crucial, you hit the speed boost button, and boom, for that amount of time, you're going at 120 FPS. And so speed boost is pretty cool because you can assign it here under the custom button settings of the menu. So it's on the front button, obviously, here, and you can see there's two different ways that you can use it. I like to use it as a toggle where I just click it once and let go, and it's already moved to 120, and it stays there until I click it and toggle it off again. But some people like to use it where it's engaged only while they're holding the button down. I find that I have less hand fatigue if I'm just toggling it on and off, but you can set it to be a hold or a toggle. So that's done here in the custom key settings. So just wanted to show you guys that you can implement it with a toggle or a hold, and that you can assign whatever speeds you want, which is really great. So with Alpha 9 III, you can even go to 60. So the advantage there is you're still getting an incredible frames per second, but now you can extend your buffer even further to, 200, 300, 400 images per burst. So super cool. You get to decide what you'd like those to be and how you toggle your turbo button. So that is just a quick demo of how to take advantage of speed boost. So it's the C5 custom button, and it's right in the front, so super convenient, right down below your shutter button. You can hold it or toggle it, and then set whatever frames per second you want for low, medium, and high. And then we saw the options, which is either 10, 15, 20, 30, 60, or 120 frames per second, which gives you really amazing versatility to pick and choose exactly how many frames or how fast you need to follow the action. And the big piece of advice I have for you guys is make sure you buy CF Express Type A cards when you're planning to shoot any kind of big event where you're tracking high speed action. For me, at Max Muay Thai, I ran through, I want to say probably like 500 gigabytes of CFA within roughly an hour, hour and a half. And so, the buffer is great and it can clear pretty quick, and you can still use SD cards, but you're just going to get that much better of an experience and miss less moments because of waiting for buffer if you're using CFA. And so I use Sony Tough, and I also use some Lexar memory, and that's what I recommend. Try to stick to CFA with A9 III. So there's a little preview of some more action back there. And so here we have another example. This time we're going to look at a 75 image burst and see exactly what we've been talking about, how you can use all of these different technologies to leverage all of the speed capabilities of A9 III to capture that one critical moment right there where the punch lands or the goal hits or the bride and groom kiss. All of those peak action moments can be captured like never before with Alpha 9 Mark III, thanks to all of these amazing technologies all combined together. We've got our global shutter, we've got our Bionz XR processor, we have our dedicated AI processing unit, amazing autofocus, CFA, you name it. So as you can see here, again, 75 images captured in under a second, all critically focused on our subject. And I was shooting with this bad boy right here, the 85mm f1.8 from Sony, which supports 120 frames per second. It's lightweight, tack sharp, wide aperture, affordable, beautiful portrait prime. So I was able to get that nice shallow depth of field, nice low light performance. And as you can see, the linear motors kept up with the action at a very fast rate. So here's a little POV shot so you guys can see, basically what my view was for this shot. That's the 85-1.8 on my A9 III. And the fighters were towards the right side of the ring where the red ropes are, and we captured a 75 image burst with a 100% hit rate like it was nothing. So pretty amazing, pretty fun place, by the way. Max Muay Thai had some great energy there. And this is another sample that we teased in our last presentation, where I was shooting S&Q handheld with this setup again. So this is the 85mm f1.8, and I was just following the action like this, shooting on S&Q mode, where you can get slow motion video that's already slowed in camera, all the way up to 120 frames per second with no crop, which is incredible. So, looks like it was shot on a tripod or a gimbal, but it's just handheld with this very combination right here. So the video features of A9 III are incredible, and we're going to go over that soon. So with that, we're going to delve into the gear a little bit. So again, as I mentioned before, I use Sony G Master Glass to always achieve peak performance with Alpha 9 Mark III. I recommend that for all alpha shooters that want the best out of their cameras. For me, I took these three lenses or four lenses, I should say. We have the 24 to 70 GM Mark II. This is my bread and butter for 90% of my work. I love this lens. Then we have the 16 to 35 GM Mark II. Also amazing, lightweight, sharp, fast, linear autofocus motors that can keep up with 120 frames per second. And this bad boy right here, which is the 70 to 200 GM Mark II OSS. It's extremely lightweight, tack sharp, blazing fast. So these three lenses right here, along with the 85-1.8 and Alpha 9 Mark III, was my setup for this particular shoot at Max Muay Thai. They all support 120 FPS. For my body, I had A9III, of course, and then I had ZV-E1, which I'm filming with right now for behind the scenes. I haven't raved enough about ZV-E1, but I absolutely love it. It goes everywhere and it's compact, and I get amazing video from it. For a cage, so I've said this before, but there isn't too many options. Matter of fact, I don't know if there is any other option except for this particular cage right here from SmallRig for Alpha 9 Mark III. And so I loved using this to, as you can see, do things like this. I can mount my grip, my monitor, whatever I need to mount. I like to put those on my cameras. And this is the one I had here for my ZV-E1, which is currently not on my camera. So I use SmallRig cages for mounting my accessories, and then audio always powered by the ECM W2 BT Bluetooth wireless. You guys have been listening to it this whole time. I love the convenience of it just being on my MI shoe, no cables necessary, and it has excellent audio. And for my backpack, I had everything in my Vanguard adapter R48. Really great backpack that I love. And with that, here's a sneak peek of what's next. For our next presentation on June 10th, we're going to be discussing how to leverage A9III to be a hybrid shooter, so you can quickly flip back and forth between getting incredible photos and amazing videos. So we're going to cover that in our next presentation at the Train Night Market in Bangkok. Really cool place that had all kinds of awesome stuff. Classic American muscle cars, which I was shocked. I wasn't expecting to walk in and see, classic Chevys and all these really cool American muscle cars there. So that's going to be our next presentation. We're going to cover hybrid shooting with Alpha 9 Mark III for photo and video at the same time. And with that, Derek, I'm going to open it up to Q&A.
I agree with everything you just said. Everything.
I digress. I do not want that smoke at all.
Same. Truce. We'll call it even. Reza, so many times we hear about cameras, we have YouTube, we have reviewers, we have all this information at our fingertips online, but taking it out there, real world experience speaks way more towards a camera that is going to do the job that we needed to do. That all being said, after using this extensively, I mean, it doesn't get any better or more difficult than taking it in low light, having, athletes, high-powered athletes moving at quick rates of speed to really test out everything that the cameras and the lenses say that they're going to do. So what for you was the most impressive, and what were some things that you may have either underestimated or not fully gotten a full taste of just in looking at the specs that you really got to see flexed while you were out there? That looks like we lost them. See, this is becoming a common theme for me. I scare everyone away. I don't know what happened.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear. I thought I scared you away. I was like, wait, we throw a challenge out and then he...
I think I hit the cable on my camera and
no
unplugged
worries.
it. But yeah, so real world experience is essential. We can hark about specs all day, but when we are seeing the results of real life, it's a whole different story. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this. Check me out there with,
Love it.
with the cast and crew. So that's all the fighters. That's really what it's all about. You want to be able to see what it can actually do. And, I did my best to really show you guys, how incredible it is to be able to be shooting in the dark from across the stadium and still get that critical focus on an eye with, you know, boxers moving at that kind of pace and movement. So yeah, I'm super stoked on the A9III. It's incredible.
Awesome. Well, we had a question come in from Danny joining us on YouTube. Says, "Great presentation, Reza. I just have one question. Why Sony? So, what is it about the Alpha system for you?"
To be honest, when I started, close to a decade ago with A6000, and I've written about this extensively. I liken it to the first time that, if you're old enough like me, you saw high definition television. When we jumped from 480p to 720, that first time you saw that image, and you kind of had that aha moment. That's what I noticed when I switched off onto my A6000 from my 5D Mark III at the time. And back then, that one was a stickler for, front focus, back focus. It shooting wide open, on the eye was really, really difficult. If your subject moved a little and you were at 1.2, forget about it, right? And
Hmm.
the A6000 had eye autofocus. And for me, like, as soon as I saw how easily I could nail gorgeous wide open portraits with minimal effort, it was over. I implemented it in my wedding work, and Sony just continued to improve more and more and more with each iteration of eye autofocus, to where that became the standard. And I've just become so adept over the years that I know my cameras inside and out, and I can capture peak action or nail that first look in the kiss for the ceremony. And just the community in general, Alpha's super supportive, really great community. I have love for all brands and all creatives, but that's just my story, why I chose Alpha for my
Yeah.
pro work.
I mean, you want to be comfortable with your system, and the community is a big help. I mean, it even goes beyond the gear. You want to entrust, because again, we're buying into an ecosystem. We're not just buying a single one-off camera. You're buying into the mentality of the brand. Is that brand gonna have the vision and the foresight to listen to the users and make the minimal changes? Make, that are they gonna listen? Is there gonna be firmware updates? So it's really, I think it's more of that timeline thing rather than, hey, here's one great solid camera, but can you do it again and again and again? And can you put together a system that is worth investing in?
Well, absolutely agreed. Yeah, Alpha is really good at listening to feedback without punishing people, as we've heard from influential people recently. Uh,
Hot topic now.
yeah, I'm back. Can you see me now,
There
Derek?
you, hey, there we go.
Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, that's the thing for me. Is I've had a ton of support. I love the innovation. I love how Alpha is like forcing the rest of the industry to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And like I said, we have love for all brands and all creatives, but we like to keep pushing the needle.
Hmm.
And that's what I identify with. I'm always kind of like a bleeding edge guy that wants to keep pushing himself. Like you were saying before, Derek, like I'm always creating. I'm always trying to keep pushing myself.
I love that.
So
It keeps you engaged, man, and you always have to remain in motion because the industry's changing. It's becoming more saturated. Your tastes change too. As a person, as a photographer, it's like you do something for a while, and if you stop getting better or you stop staying engaged, then you get stagnant and you get bored with your work. So it's like you gotta keep moving the needle forward. I want to know, what ISO were you shooting at most of the time in there? Because number one question I get from people is always, whenever it's gear related, it's, I need something low light. Well, is it going to focus fast in low light? How is the high ISO quality? Because I mean, anybody can make a great camera if you go out and you're shooting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's the only time you're shooting. But for the indoors, what ISO were you shooting at? How did it handle it?
super important that you brought that up, Derek. So like that's one of the nuggets of advice that I picked up from one of my mentors, and his thing was like, dude, don't be afraid of 2.8. Like today's cameras are so incredibly good at ISO that people are actually not utilizing the full potential of the ISO performance. By being afraid to push their ISO, they're limiting the quality of their work by not raising their shutter speed high enough to get tack sharp imagery, thinking that, oh, if my shutter's too high, I have to crank my ISO too high, and now I have a noisy image. But it's actually the opposite. Because you're not relying on your ISO, you're getting non-keepers, blurry shots. And for me, I was like at 10,000 or higher, Eric. Like I'm pretty sure I never dropped, below 6,400 at the very low, lowest. So 12,800, 10,000, and it's always in the back of my head now. Ever since I picked up that nugget of wisdom, don't be afraid to push ISO. Push ISO, push it, and just make sure that you have a sharp shot. Because, as we all know, you can clean noise, but you can't like fix a blurry image ever. Like especially if it's really blurry, right? So that's what I would say for us to like impart on people is don't be afraid, especially with modern cameras. The ISO performance are so good that you should prioritize your shutter and having a sharp shot versus being afraid of pushing your ISO.
Totally. There's somewhere out there on the internet, there's a video of me, a troll job, where I was talking about shooting at 10,000 ISO at night in the street. And it's like, I'm smiling right now because it's like people were looked at me like I was crazy. And this was years ago, and years ago cameras were able to handle it. And now, the software, forget the cameras, the software to adjust, like you have all this noise reduction software now where the cameras do a great job. But if you're that type of person that's like, no, it's not good enough, you throw it in some software and it's amazing what you can do now. It's like you said, it's prioritizing. You can't go in and sharpen something that's motion blurred. You can go in and take some noise out. And yes, is it going to have the integrity of a studio shot, at with great lighting or during the day? No, it's never going to get there. But it's not only very passable, you get some very, very, very good images at high ISO.
For sure. And it helps you also get over the fear of always being scared of your ISO going too high. The other thing is that we're seeing a trend of this thing called dirtying the frame, right? Everyone wants those older lenses that have character, and they want the filmic look, and adding grain and using film simulations, and leaving ISO noise is one way that you can get a little bit of that, right?
It's
you get a little
funny
bit
you
of
say
grain.
that. It's like everything was trending towards like image quality, image quality, image quality. Now it's like, well, how can I make the image quality go back in time to make it look like it was shot on film? Interesting time we're living in. I had a question from Tim. Reza, what's a decent starting point for a budget limited kit for an amateur? Let's say this. Let's say if you can give me not over $2,000. Let's set a cap 2,000, 2,500.
Oh, amazing options. Are we talking just body, Tim, or are we talking body and lens?
Let's go body and lens. If you had to kit someone out for $2,500, what would you do?
So for a starting kit, just like me personally, and I'm speaking from real life experience, Alpha APS-C is an incredible starting option. I started the A6000. We're all the way up to A6700, which has nearly all of the features of Alpha 9III, right, Eric? We've got the AI processing unit. We've got 4K 10-bit in APS-C, incredible autofocus, 4K 120, and the added benefit of having significantly smaller lenses. So they're more affordable, they're smaller, they're lighter weight. So with 2,500, you can get a 6700, get the awesome new trio of APS-C lenses. We have like
a 2840. What's the third one hanging out there?
We have some amazing primes. We got a new small 10 to 20 millimeter zooms that will cover your wide angles, and then we have I believe it's like a 15 or a 16 millimeter f1.4 prime for your low light portraiture. There's a lot of options that you have in Alpha, both native glass and third-party glass. And if you want to start and stay even under the 2,500, you can easily achieve that. But I got to throw a shout out to my buddy Manny Ortiz. I don't know if you saw his video, like it was pretty recent, where he's like, what first starting full frame camera would I buy in 2024? Of course, the A7R III. So if you're open to having, some of the older Alpha cameras, which are still incredibly good. I think for 2,500, Derek, you could get a killer full frame setup just by looking at maybe a used A7R III option.
A
And I bring
great
that up
point.
because that sensor is one of my all-time favorite sensors. I absolutely loved the 42 megapixel of the dynamic range and the sweet spot of the resolution of that A7R III was incredible. So it just depends. You can find something throughout the whole range, whether it be bleeding edge, APS-C, full frame, couple models back. You can't go wrong. And Derek, the team of ENH, and myself are here to help you with that. Just let us know.
There you go. We got you covered. We got you in store, online, over the phone. I agree. I think that's such an understated point, Reza, about getting a used body, especially with the Alpha system. The systems have been great. Anything produced within the last 5 to 7 years is way more than enough. And I say 5 to 7 years, I could probably stretch it, stretch stuff out to like the cameras of the last 10 years are able to do a heck of a lot more than people that were, early adopters to digital and even what we were doing in the film days. So yeah, A7R3, A7S3, A7R4, they're all great cameras. And then you take whatever money you're saving on a slightly older body and you get a 24 to 70, either a Mark One or a Mark Two. One of the first or the second, you're still gonna get great zoom lens right there. That's the glass is where it's at. I've always been a glass first. It's always gonna outlast the bodies, so that's my unsolicited advice to you, Tim, is go glass heavy. Get that glass first. Get a focal length that you're happy with, or get a nice zoom. And then, like Reza said, you can pair it with whatever your budget allows for. You're not gonna go wrong. There's no going wrong. It's a everybody wins situation.
That's the beauty of the superstore. So when is it the second floor on the way to the third, Derek, where the
Second
used
second floor, you
cases?
got the second floor up with all the kiosks. Try them out. You can go bring a memory card. Bring a memory card. Take some shots. Take them home, look and see what you want. And the another great thing now with the camera sensors is what are you looking at, like 60 megapixels in a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
these full frames, where it's like that's way more than you need. And I used to be someone who was like, oh, 24, 26 is enough. But then when you get more, you're like, you know what? I don't need it, but I love having it because if I want to crop down or for compositional reasons, or if you're going out and you're taking a prime lens and you can't get the reach and you can't run on your legs fast enough to get the photo that you want, that you have the ability to crop down. So a lot of great options out there.
huge benefit for that, and that's kind of like why the A7 Mark IV is kind of a sweet spot, right? At 33 megapixels, it's in between even the A7R III, for sure, the A7R 4 and 5, and the A7CR. So there's a lot of options in there, and just to piggyback on Derek's point, you know, you can breathe new life into gear that people might overlook, save money, and really it's not about the gear that it's helping you get better. It's the education and just creating with what you can have access to. So it might seem like I'm all about the gear, but I'm actually implementing them in my work and wanting to show you guys and share my knowledge. But otherwise, I'll take an A6000 and go create tomorrow.
Like
It's
Reza
not about the gear.
said, the gear is great, but it's all about the education. And that's what we do here at the event space. Of course, Reza, one of our familiar faces that's always here to help us out with his knowledge and experience. He's taken us on another trip in a couple weeks, what, about a week and a half now? So come back for that, of course, and check out our schedule. Head to the website, see what we have coming up. And if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, of course, check us out on YouTube at B&H Event Space on there, where you can find this and all of our other live recorded content. But that is all we have for you now. Another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space now in the books. Catch y'all next time.